Do you remember the last time someone paid you a genuine, wholly disinterested compliment? Perhaps someone liked your outfit or your hair, or even praised your radiant smile. Picture that time. Put yourself back in the exact place at that exact moment. How did it make you feel? Probably really good, right? And warm inside. Well, I'd hope so. Now, that feeling, that is a sense of recognition and belonging we get from just existing in and being part of a community. It is those actions, especially the small, effortless ones, that make us feel confident and empowered in our common space. So I'm going to talk about that feeling, that strong sense of community that is important in our everyday lives. But going further than that, I'm going to ask whether you are active members in your communities, making an impact and cultivating the world that we will face tomorrow and beyond. Because especially for us, Gen Z, wouldn't you want to take the power into your own hands to shape the spaces we are going to inhabit? I think we would all agree that a strong sense of community is a vital aspect of modern life and an essential component in human flourishing. Not in the sense that we are forced to live with and around other people, but that human interaction is an integral, even primal aspect of our existence. And for the most part, we are far better off for it. Studying philosophy and theology has made me quite attuned to this, whether it be considering the inextricable connection of religious experiences in community as proposed by Durkheim, or the centrality of community in society seen in the polis as articulated by Aristotle. In his Politics, he writes, "One citizen differs from another, but the salvation of the community is the common business of them all." In both Aristotle and Durkheim, arguably two of the greatest and most influential thinkers of their times, community is the central philosophical and sociological tenet. Clearly then, it is something which is deeply rooted in our intellectual traditions and more fundamentally, our human nature. Personally, I really don't know if I would have made it through the physically and emotionally draining events of this year if it had not been for those around me, even in a virtual sense. We have all been through some really tough moments in these last few months, and that has particularly affected those in my generation. Coronavirus and the imposed lockdowns have made us feel collectively estranged, helpless, and a bit disorientated. A recent UK-based survey by the Mental Health Foundation shows that young people are almost 3 times more likely to experience loneliness since lockdown. Beyond the global pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement has reminded us that human life is a right that some of us are still having to demand, even in the year 2020. Whilst the NSAS movement in Nigeria shows that just, humane treatment is still being denied to those from certain communities. We don't usually mention community in our day-to-day lives, even though we are constantly partaking in it. But for most, the recent removal of this tangible sense of belonging has revealed how important it is in making us feel safe and rooted and purposeful. Although it is hard to see, there is hope among the events that have occurred over these last few months. That being the revelation of how vivifying, rejuvenating, and even in some cases redemptive, this sense of community can actually be. Despite ostensible indications to the contrary, we hold the power to shape how our community looks. And by transforming meetings and gatherings online, we can find and have found ways to engage and be around others without that physical aspect. Whilst physical intimacy might have been lacking during lockdown, emotional and intellectual intimacy was there in abundance. And so with this, I see my two favourite African proverbs collide. It takes a village to raise a child, and sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. I was always told the first one whilst growing up, especially by my mum. It reminded me that my development was only aided by those around me, helping to build me up. Perhaps that's why I care so deeply about this topic. The second one I've grown fond of more recently. It's a bittersweet reminder of our vulnerability alone, but collective strength together. It even reminds me of the impetus of us as a generation. Like the sticks, we are bundled together by passion and care for important causes, and we are unbreakable in what we do. Likewise, the biblical phrase from Ecclesiastes, a threefold cord is not easily broken, conveys exactly the same powerful humanistic message. We've established the importance of community and how it is both integral and essential to our lives, but we need to ask ourselves whether we are active agents in our community. Why should I even care about this, you may ask? And I can only agree with Aristotle in saying that the salvation of our community is the common business of us all. As the English metaphysical poet John Donne said, I am involved in mankind. Consider the compliment example I brought up at the start of this talk. That shows us how very small, seemingly trivial actions can have a meaningful impact on others. I don't know about you, but when I get paid compliments, it totally brightens up my day, making me much nicer to those around me. Ultimately, though, I become more aware of and involved in my surroundings. We can go further than compliments, though. For me, the most impactful scheme I've been privileged to be a part of is called Leaders of Tomorrow. It's a small, grassroots mentor scheme for teenagers based in Peckham, South London. It encourages us, Black students from lower income backgrounds, to raise our academic level of achievement and fulfill our potential, whatever that might be. When I was there, the weekly sessions had a vocabulary slot, the rationale being to broaden our grasp and love of the English language so that we could articulate our thoughts better. We went on regular trips to museums, art galleries and theatres in order to expand our cultural and artistic horizons beyond the confines of SE15. And we were wholly encouraged to try our best at everything we did. The volunteers that helped us came every Tuesday. They came with their energy, care, and enthusiasm, and they helped us become better versions of ourselves. Now, if it wasn't for them turning up every week, rain or shine, and nurturing our potential, I wouldn't know half of the historical facts or references to literature that I do now. I wouldn't have been inspired by the creative industries and the arts from watching a myriad of performances in the West End. I wouldn't now be studying at Oxford University, where the mentors encouraged me to apply because of my academic potential. But most importantly, I would not be confident enough to believe in my own ideas and self-worth and be able to stand here today talking to you from a TED stage. But this newfound confidence, buttressed by the sense of community I had from the volunteers who always came back, week in, week out, has incredibly shaped my life and will continue to do so. The train ride they took to mentor us every week was the difference in my life story. Really think about that. Whatever you decide to do, even if it is seemingly small, can have an extraordinary impact on those in your community. So what will you choose to do to help others around you? And if you are already being active, how far is it, as Aristotle puts, for the salvation of your community? For me, I'm now involved in the Blackhead Students Network, a group of current and previous young Blackhead boys and girls in the UK. As the vice chair of the network, we encourage Black students from our communities to expand their mindset, develop their leadership, and become the change makers of tomorrow. Hearing stories of our members gaining successful offers for work internships we've helped them apply to, or excelling in interviews we help them practice for, is a truly fulfilling feeling. When I advise them on personal statements written for university applications, which mainly takes less than an hour out of my day, I often forget that their implementation of my feedback could be the difference in their university acceptances. That small change completely alters their life journey. But this isn't about just me. This is about Gen Z and our impact. Because what is most humbling about the network is seeing our members becoming active agents in their own communities. Some have created schemes to help those in need, locally or abroad. Others use online activism to push their peers' humanitarian awareness further. And others use creative outlets to engage the community, whether that be through podcasting or blogging. The network is thriving with change makers. But as a generation, we can and must push harder. Writing from the University of California, Jonathan London posits, why have the realizations that youth and community development are inextricably linked, that youth are essential partners in community building, and that community building can provide developmental opportunities for youth, not been enough to make linking the two common practices? In other words, even if we have come to learn that young people, Gen Z, are the key for a thriving community, where is the implementation? Is it because we think we are too young, too impressionable, too helpless? Well, I hope not, because we can add value, no matter our age. And as I hope I have shown you, it doesn't need to be a big thing to make such a monumental impact on someone's life or community group as a whole. As the saying goes, a small stone cast can make the biggest ripple. So you don't have to run a marathon, create a charity, or save the planet. Be realistic and make it work for you. Because when all is said and done, only we know what the problems are on the ground for us. So really, only we can use our voices to meaningfully attempt to fix it. And if we all do this, we can make a groundbreaking change. After all, sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. So I ask you, listeners, Gen Z or otherwise, what will be the steps you will take to be an active agent in your community? Because imagine how great your actions, no matter how small, can affect change. As you know, I have a love of African proverbs, so I'll leave you with this last one. It's the philosophical South African concept of Ubuntu, a concept of togetherness and shared humanity. So the next time you're paid a compliment, or even give one, remember how good it feels to be part of a thriving community. Remember how our effortless actions can create so many positive reactions. Remember that if we strive together to be the change makers of tomorrow, we can gradually push for the salvation of all our communities.